Good morning. Good morning and welcome to First Parish in Concord. Whether you're here with us in the sanctuary or joining us on Zoom or watching us later on YouTube, I'm Gib Metcalf and will be helping with the service today. If you're here in person and have questions about accessibility or hearing assistance or any other questions, please see one of our ushers in the back. Children are always welcome in the sanctuary. Most weeks we have a religious education exploration program for kids with Amy and Dawn, and that will be back again next week. For now, there are activity packets in the vestibule, and there are also activities in the parlor downstairs. If you're online, please feel free and welcome to participate fully in the chat. I think we have an online host today. I'm not sure who it is, but they can identify themselves. And today's flowers are from Debbie Portis's memorial service, and thanks to her family for those, and our hearts are with Debbie's family. Our COVID precautions are masking in the building and distancing as you wish, and increasing our ventilation through the use of fans, which we have in the balcony. And we are glad to be a highly vaccinated community. I'd like to introduce the Reverend Ken Reeves, who will be leading our worship service today. Ken is a graduate of the Star King School for the Ministry and has served congregations in Dayton, Ohio, and Wilmington, Delaware. He has also earned a master's in pastoral counseling and a PhD in clinical psychology. He is currently a clinical psychologist with a therapy practice, a consulting psychologist with the Center for Career Development and Ministry, and has been an adjunct professor at Andover Newton Theological School. He is also the author of The Whole Church, Congregational Leadership Guided by Systems Theory. Welcome, Ken.
May peace be in your hearts. Through the energy of freedom and the warmth of love, may you live the fullness of being alive. Through justice and understanding, may humanity be at peace, and may all of life on earth live together in balance and peace. Thank you, Gib, for introducing me and for sharing the service with me today. It's an honor to be with you all this morning. I want to welcome anyone who might be visiting here for the first time. I think it takes some courage to enter the doors of an unfamiliar congregation, and so I extend my welcome and applaud your courage. And if I were to introduce this congregation to our visitors, I would say that it is a support community for people on various journeys towards ultimate goals, such as love, or peace, or union. After the shooting in Texas, we can offer each other emotional support by understanding each other's emotions, be they grief, or despair, anger, fear, helplessness. We make eye contact, maybe offer cautious hugs. We name those lost: Eva, Irma, Uzziah, McKenna, Jose, Rogelio, Emery Joe, Xavier, Annabelle, Elijah, Elihana, JC, Halia, Tess, Alexandria, Jackie, Nevea, Layla, Alethea, Maite, and Miranda. At the end of King Lear holding Cordelia's body, Lear cries, "Why should a dog, a horse, a rat have life, and thou no breath at all?" There is no good answer, but we can share this agonizing question. And maybe we share feeling tired of violence and tired of hostility in some circles cast as a virtue, and tired of political paralysis around guns and say, how long? Maybe we support each other by considering hope. I find hope for children when, as a psychologist, I take people's histories and hear a refrain. My parents spanked me when I was a child, but I don't do that to my child. That's my story too. And kids used to be slaves on cotton plantations and used to labor in factories and mines, and in schools were taught to the beat of a hickory stick on their backs. And no more. Love has given us these developments, and love is not finished, which gives me hope. We support and are supported by each other's caring. I appreciate the people in this community caring for each other and for the world, and the work to make the world a more humane place is lightened by companions. We support each other as we look inward for security or for a ballast as the ship of life is pounded by stormy seas. Where is your inner security? For some, God is a stable rock, a caring spirit holding us in our pain. I also go inward to my principles. I continue to value kindness. I persist on my mission, which is to journey toward love and to support others on this journey. The journey toward love calls me to offer today's sermon. It's about a community coming together on a journey toward or a search for something mysterious and elusive, like love. The sermon is a story, a fable, and sometimes a fable can convey something true. The story is a little irreverent, and sometimes irreverent playfulness is supportively healing amid pain, such as at memorials where we recount the goofy things the deceased used to do. Playfulness also looks at things in a light that seriousness misses. And people gain power by laughing at the devil. And sometimes we support each other by allowing balance. As Ecclesiastes noted, there's a time to mourn and a time to dance. Or the activist Emma Goldman, if I can't dance, I don't want to join your revolution. It would be a mistake for me to try to lead you in dance, but I can tell a story that balances sorrow with something else. Offer the sermon out of my caring for you and my wish to support us on our journey. I hope that on our journey together, we make serendipitous discoveries of freedom and love.
Every week we join other UU congregations around the world in lighting a chalice, a symbol of our faith. And so I invite you to rise and join in our chalice lighting response. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours, this sacred, essential moment now.
The service today, the sermon, has something to do with mystery, and as does this hymn, Mysterious Presence, Source of All, number 92. Let's sing together. I love the book Walden as a fable in a way of human possibility, the benefits of nature and time to reflect. And there's this one passage in Walden, though, that I read and I go, wait a minute, what is he talking about? It's an enigmatic paragraph referring to images that he doesn't mention anywhere else in the book. My sermon hopes to explain maybe one theory of what he is getting at in this passage. The passage reads, I long ago lost a hound, a bay horse, and a turtle dove, and am still on their trail. Many other travelers have spoken concerning them, describing their tracks and what calls they answered to. I've met one or two who have heard the hound and the tramp of the horse, and even seen the dove disappear behind a cloud, and they seemed as anxious to recover them as if they had lost them themselves. What is he talking about? This is a sermon about ministry and a decision to enter the ministry, and I'm glad to offer it to you because I think anyone participating in a congregational community shares in the ministry of that congregation, both the professional ministers, trained ministers, and everybody. And so since you are then ministers, you can understand that of which I speak. Not everyone understands. Indeed, people from my former profession say, ministry? What's that all about? And how did you, of all people, decide to become a minister? They might have been thinking of my cynicism or my sinfulness or both, probably both. Anyway, I say, well, ministry is about caring for people and supporting spiritual communities and making life better, which I realized I wanted to do. And that's true, but the real truth is more mysterious than that. It all began one autumn afternoon many years ago, back when I was a private detective. It had been another boring day at the office. I had my feet on my desk and was wondering whether 1 o'clock was too early to take a nip of Scotch whiskey when she walked in. She was someone. People would know it when she was approaching, think of little else when she was there, and remember it when she had gone. With green eyes looking deep and liquid into mine, she said, Mr. Reeves, I need your help. Her voice went down easy like a velvety wine of exquisite vintage. My husband, she continued, the millionaire financier J. Pierpont Farquharson III, who is 50 years older than me, is missing. Here is his picture. If he is gone from my life, I do not know what I will do. Her eyes embraced mine and did not let go. Was I guessing, or did she think I might have some role to play in what she might do with the rest of her life? I ventured, maybe you don't need him around anymore. Maybe I don't, she said, but I do need someone strong who can protect me. Maybe I can find just such a person, I offered. Maybe you won't have to strain yourself looking. With all this flattering talk, I started fantasizing about life with Mrs. Farquharson, gazed out the window, saw an old duffer buying carrots at a market across the street, and before I could stop myself, blurted, "Is that him?" "It is," she moped. "Darn. Well, here's $50, thanks a lot." And she left my office and my life. And I decided, yes, I would begin work on that bottle in the desk. It was cheap and burned the tonsils, but soon I was swimming. When a man walked in smelling of pine, he said, "I long ago lost a hound, a bay horse, and a turtle dove, and I'm still on their trail." Many other travelers have spoken concerning them, describing their tracks and what calls they answered to. I have met one or two who have heard the hound and the tramp of the horse and even seen the dove disappear behind a cloud, and they seemed as anxious to recover them as if they had lost them themselves. I said, "You talk funny. What's your name?" "Thoreau," he said, and took off his hat. His clothes were rough and worn, but he seemed proud of his station in life. I said, "I'm good at finding people. Too good. Never done the missing animal racket before." I glanced out the window, hoping to get lucky, but no. "Where were they last seen?" I asked. "Around Concord, Massachusetts," he said. Really? I was going to go around hollering, "Here, doggy," through some New England burg. "This'll cost you," I said, $20 a day plus expenses. Thoreau pulled out a piece of paper. "I have a surplus in my bean crop I could give you, and I can do some carpentry or day labor for you, but I can't pay anything. It has already cost me $28.12 to build my house at the pond, and another $33.87 for my farming, food, clothing, and incidentals for this year. Although I earned $36.78 selling my beans and doing day labor, but I have spent the $25.21 I had saved, so I don't have any money to offer you." I asked, "What's so important about a hound, a horse, and a dove?" "They are a dream," he said. "And if one advances confidently in the direction of a dream and endeavors to live the life which one has imagined, one will meet with success unexpected in common hours." I stared at him, thinking of how my dreams of life with Mrs. Farquharson had gone flat. I don't know why. Maybe I feared that too many disappointments and not enough dreams could harden me into granite. Or maybe this Thoreau had a gleam in his eye I could learn something from. Whatever the reason, I agreed. "Okay, I'm in." I stowed the bottle in my desk, pulled on my coat, and the two of us caught the next train on the old Fitchburg Railway out to Concord. When we arrived, Thoreau said that his friend, Ralph Waldo Emerson, would have a room for me and that I'd find him at Wright's Tavern or out on the Common. And with that, he strode off along a faint path into the woods. As I watched him, I observed a spring in his step and a rhythm all his own, like he was marching to the beat of a different drummer. At the tavern, I asked for a scotch and said to the bartender, "I'm looking for a friend of Thoreau's, Ralph Waldo Emerson. You know him?" "Everyone knows Waldo," he said. "I'd like to meet him." "He's around someplace. You can't miss him. Funny hat, glasses." I scanned the patrons of the establishment, people drunk, sleeping, brawling, being thrown out a window, people flirting, kissing, dancing, playing music, sliding down banisters, and in the midst of this mayhem, no one stood out. Finally, I yelled, "Where's Waldo?" Someone pointed to a tall figure outside striding across the village green. I went out to the man and asked, "How you doing?" He said, "Crossing a bare common at twilight under a clouded sky, without having in my thoughts any occurrence of special good fortune, I have enjoyed perfect exhilaration. I am glad to the brink of fear. Standing on the bare ground, my head bathed by the blithe air and uplifted into infinite space, all mean egotism vanishes. I become a transparent eyeball. I am nothing, I see all. The currents of universal being circulate through me. I am part or parcel of God." I frowned and beat both my brain cells together about this testimony, but couldn't make anything out of it, so I shifted to my business. I said, "Thoreau hired me to help locate a certain hound, bay horse, and turtle dove. My name's Reeves, Ken Reeves, Private Eye." He took me to a comfortable manse in the village, and we sat by the fire. I asked, "You know anything of the whereabouts of these animals?" "I know they are out there," he mused. "Where should I start looking?" "I can't tell you. Truly speaking, it is not instruction but provocation I can give another soul," he said. "Trust yourself. Avoid the well-worn path. Refuse the good models, even those held sacred in the imagination of society. Obey thyself." I said. The next morning, I began tramping through the woods. I wear out my shoe leather on pavement, so this wilderness was new to me. I thought, where would a dog, a horse, and a bird be? Had they been taken by someone? There was no ransom note. Were they just wandering confused in the forest? If so, my wandering confused might find them, only to join the ranks of the lost. Were they hiding intentionally, finding some perverse pleasure baffling these dotty Concord types? If so, they could be watching me now and stifling giggles. After a day of wandering, I found no animals except I saw some little gray birds flitting through the trees and watched some ducks or something swimming and diving in a lake. I found a tiny cabin, sat and rested. The autumn air was cooling. Up walked Thoreau. "Good day, Mr. Reeves. Would you like to join me for dinner? I make a bread of rye and Indian corn meal." He baked them over a fire, and the loaves were surprisingly good. We discussed the search. He had been looking too, so had Emerson, no results. I said, "Okay, Thoreau, spill the beans." "Oh, yes," he said, "I forgot. Let's have some of my beans. When I began gardening, I was determined to know beans, and I have." "What I mean," I said, "is you've been hiding some of the facts. First off, why are you living here in this cabin?" "I went to the woods," he said, "because I wish to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not when I came to die discover that I had not lived. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms." I thought with all his wacko ideas, he ought to write a book. But the man had a purpose, and there was that gleam in his eye. My mug, no gleam. I continued to question Thoreau. Where do the animals fit in? Have they been kidnapped? Are you being extorted? Or are they just dumb animals who've wandered off with the wrong crowd? He kept shaking his head. "Okay, Thoreau, is there any reason these animals might want to avoid you?" At this point, other clients would have broken down crying or taken a swing at my chin. Thoreau just gazed at the pond like it had the answers. I thought, it's a nice pond, but something's missing, and not just a dog, a horse, and a bird. Grown men out alone in the woods, and sure, the woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but something does not add up. Days continued with searching. I might see Thoreau at his house, Emerson at his, never bumped into them in the woods. Weeks went by, the leaves dropping, trees now bare, air turning cold, no sign of the animals. I stayed with Emerson at nights. Sometimes he had a group over, called themselves transcendentalists. I would hang around. You never know where a clue is going to turn up. But what a crew. Margaret Fuller, Orestes Bronson Alcott, talking about philosophers, Kant and Locke, and of Goethe. They kept trying to figure out ways to improve society. Emerson saw improvement happening when one is aware of the infinite relations in nature and of one's belonging to those relationships, giving one a sentiment of moral virtue. They asked me what I thought might improve society. I said, my society would be improved by the addition of one green-eyed Mrs. Farquharson III, thank you very much. And after that, they left me alone. But I kept thinking about infinite relations, and not just with Mrs. Farquharson. Emerson might have an idea there. The next evening in Thoreau's cabin, sitting by his fire after a cloudy, frustrating day, I said, Henry, how about if the two of us search together? He looked alarmed. His eyes darted around the room like those of a perjuring witness finally squirming. He said, I know of but one or two with whom I can afford to walk. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of the time. On the other hand, I think I love society as much as most, and am ready to fasten myself like a bloodsucker to any full-blooded man who comes my way. Yes, tomorrow, let's look together. Imagine my delight at having a bloodsucker fastened on. But this was a tough case and required more infinite relations than currently existed. It snowed that night. Next morning we set out, still taking no particular course, still eschewing the well-worn path. Thoreau, an optimist, said that the snow would make tracking easier. It was light and powdery, cleaner than city snow, clinging to branches and pine needles. Thoreau identified the chickadees for me. A few came down and pecked at his clothes. So seedy, I suspect the birds found nourishment. But by afternoon, we were cold and discouraged when Thoreau spotted a track in the snow. We peered at this single horse print, one print, alone in the snow. How? I asked. He shrugged with a dreamy smile, as if to say, I realize this does not make sense, but in a way it does. I leaned over for a close look and sniffed for a trace of the cold iron of the shoe. We walked in widening circles around the track, but that was it, one track. The idea that they knew we were looking and were toying with us grew in my mind. But I detected no motive for malice. Were they playing a practical joke? That night I told the transcendentalists what had happened. I suggested we all pair off and look. I said it would improve society. The next day, Margaret Fuller and Emerson found a single dog print, and Bronson felt a little dust of snow fall on them from a hemlock tree and a bird flying away. Thoreau joined us that evening, and everyone excitedly comparing notes. I almost allowed myself a little enthusiasm. Emerson was saying, together we are, when a dog howled. Everyone hushed. It howled again, the bay of a hound. We rushed out into the night. The moon was big. We strained our eyes. It howled again. Some wanted to go look now. Others wanted to wait till morning. They began to debate. A bunch of philosophers and individualists, everyone thinking independently. How can they agree? They turned to me. What do you advise? I advise we discuss it inside, I said. I'm colder than Al Capone in Alaska. And with that, they gave me some funny looks, but we did go inside. And the debate raged on. Motion, amendment, amendment to the amendment, friendly amendment, motion to table, point of order, call the question. We discussed it all night, and by dawn it was a moot point. But the next day we combed through the woods, calling to each other. We found more tracks, 5 hoof prints in a row, and from across the pond heard a whinny, and some dog tracks, and more dusting of snow. And that night spirits were high, and I suggested we include the rest of the town. I said, Thoreau, said that other people were anxious to find them. Let's test his theory. And if they do help look, the more detectives, the better. With this suggestion, people's eyes danced around like Thoreau's when I had suggested the two of us search together. One said, "But they're different from us." Another said, "We won't have the same intimacy." Someone asked, "What will it cost?" They seemed afraid, so I backed off. But after more days of searching together, yet coming up with nothing, welcoming the rest of Concord sounded better. We pooled some money, went to the tavern, and announced a round of drinks on the transcendentalists. Plying the townfolk with liquor was, well, my idea. I stood on a chair and described the search for the hound, bay horse, and turtle dove that Thoreau had lost. I said, "We have found clues, but the animals seem to be eluding us. We want to invite you to join the search." An old man spoke up. "I've seen tracks, heard the hound and the tramp of the horse, even seen the dove disappear behind a cloud. But no one's ever asked me to join and help look." "We're asking now," I said. "Okay, I'm in." And there was the proof. Thoreau was right. People do want to look. Someone else chimed in. We need a name to call ourselves." And they started offering names. The Skeptics and Searchers, the Free Thoreaus, the Walden Ponderers. And in the midst of us all, I called out, "We're a team. Let's just be the team. Give me a T for Thoreau, T. Give me an E for Emerson, E. Give me an A for Alcott, A. Give me an M for many people, all of us here." I don't understand what happened next, but as everyone was cheering M, the door burst open and a bay horse trotted up to Thoreau and nudged him with his nose. A hound ran in behind him, wagging his tail and jumping up on everyone, and a bird flew in and flitted around the room, and then a second flew in, and someone yelled, "2 turtle doves!" As horse, dog, and doves greeted everyone, I knew that something had happened, but didn't know what, and was standing uncharacteristically dumbfounded when I saw the horse gaze at me with a knowing eye and wink. Emerson invited me to stay on through Christmas. Everyone was so joyful, I agreed. I admit, the joy was infectious. The team celebrated in the tavern and sang carols. Emerson looked at the gathering and said, "Behold, such infinite relations, such a oneness." And I've learned something, that oneness is not just in nature. People can create a oneness. And for once, I understood him. When we worked together, the animals appeared. But solving one mystery raised others. What had really happened? Was there something magical about our infinite relatedness, about forming a team that worked in this case? How did the animals know to appear the moment we formed a team? Where had they been hiding? And where had that second dove come from? I suspected avian hanky-panky and that something new would be hatching come spring. Finally, as I walked to take the Fitchburg Railway home, people were cheering, "Give me a T." Horse and dog were running and doves flying, and I dreaded my dreary office. And so, as you know, I went off to study for the ministry. Being ministers yourselves, maybe you can understand why. But how do I explain it to the cops and crooks and dames of my former profession? That life on a team, on the trail of an elusive dream, is more wondrous and mysterious than I had guessed. and that I wanted to join just such a team embarked on just such a trail. This is a time in which you can turn to your neighbor and or comment on the chat and answering the question of what magic has happened to you with other people. What magic has happened to you with other people? We have a couple minutes. She was getting my joke, so it's really great. I can't see her face and her mouth, but I can see her eyes. She's like, oh yeah. Heard her laughing. Yeah. So that's always great when somebody gets it. This is a time in which we recognize significant events in the life of our congregation and among members of our community. Regina Carraro and Jeff Clannon were married 40 years ago today in a small chapel in Boston. They met after someone at work remarked to Regina that there was this cute guy she might find interesting. Regina made a work excuse, met with Jeff, and the rest is history. Cindy S. and Rob W. are overjoyed to share the surprise arrival of their granddaughter, Ruthie, born to Robin and Benjamin on May 25th, 3 weeks earlier than expected. All are recovering well and anticipate going home together soon. Cindy and Rob will be flying out to Wyoming to greet their granddaughter and share their wonderful transition. Welcome into life, little Ruthie. Sadly, Suzanne Foley's daughter, Debbie Porter House, died on Monday, May 23rd of cancer. Our hearts go out to Suzanne, Debbie's husband, Greg, and their daughter, Allison. May they feel our support. Leah Russell's father, John Russell, died peacefully in his home Tuesday, May 24th. He was Leah's father, mentor, friend, and fellow Unitarian Universalist. May Leah and her family be comforted. And feel free to name anyone who is in your hearts who would benefit from our shared support. And let's sing together, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
I realize this is Memorial Day weekend. The sermon was not much about memorializing soldiers, but now I think of the mostly men who engaged in combat, some of them dying. The closest I've come to such combat and violence has come with the movie Saving Private Ryan. The squad in that movie were not involved in the geopolitics of war. They were saving one soldier so he could have a fulfilling life. And in a way, I think they were saving all of us, so you and I would not have to fight in wars and could instead live fulfilling lives. I am in awe of such generosity. Today, it falls to people stopping shooters and people preventing further gun violence so all of us can live fulfilling lives. And it falls to Ukrainians who are saving us all from the predations of ruthless autocracy. God, I am thankful for the large hearts of heroes. And I add, dear God, you are that unity which spans the multitudes, that cohesive spirit that brings us all together. Grant the peace that heals bodies and souls from the trauma of violence. and grant the peace that guides us to end violence and war. Let us have a moment for silence.
Find the stillness, oh, the stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, oh, the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Our congregation's mission engages us to build community, deepen spiritually, and work for justice. At this time in our service, we offer a reflection on the ways in which our actions can shape the world. And when we act in ways that support and hold beloved community, we are acting socially for the good of the whole. Sometimes this requires sacrifice. Sometimes it requires courage, and always it requires love. We light our candle this week for the passage of safe, sane, sensible federal legislation on gun control. I invite you to act with others and to consider how we can build a new world safe from the random violence in Uvalde, Texas, in Buffalo, New York, and in so many other communities in our country in these past few worlds. Let us build a better world. And at this time, we take a collection for the good of the church, and we also share the plate with half of the plate collection going to First Parish for our work, and for half going to a community group chosen by a group in the congregation. And during this month, we have been supporting the work of La Colaborativa, which is empowering Latinx immigrants. And this group has been sponsored by the Immigration Justice Task Force. So I invite you to dig deep into your wallets or text to our tax-deductible donation to 855-691-2592. The collection will now be taken. As we come to the close of our service, I have a few invitations and announcements. First, I just want to thank Eric Heineke and Nancy Ackerman for these beautiful duets we've been listening to today. They really add so much to enrich our service. There's lots going on in the church, and of course you can read about it in FP Weekly. And if you are not getting it, check your spam filter or send a message to the office to be added to the email list. Kel Kelleher is leading the worship sharing circle today. Kel, are you here? Jim will be leading, I guess, and you'll be leading it somewhere, upstairs, outside. Great. So look for Jim Snyder Grant after the service. We also have coffee hour out on the Labyrinth, set up on the Labyrinth. You can get your coffee downstairs, take it outside, and enjoy this lovely day. There'll be a number of representatives of different groups to speak with. There are cards. There's a card table set up for pastoral milestones to write notes. And I am a member of the Standing Committee and will be out there and happy to talk with people who have questions or comments for the Standing Committee. Thank you.
Well, we may not be in Wright Tavern singing Christmas carols, but we can join in union and have infinite relatedness as we sing together, "We Would Be One," hymn number 318. Thank Gib and Nancy, Pamela, and Eric, and all of you for sharing in this day's service with me. When we come together, things happen. What brings us together? A shared quest for something good, a better world, a meaningful purpose, love, and then horse, hound, and even doves appear. We're also guided by these closing words. Go out into the world in peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, honor all beings. Amen. Let us seated for the closing words of the postlude.